I wanted to give just a short talk, maybe because it's just one project, not like several ones like yours. I presented this in October on the Web Audio conference on the demo slot, so on this demo stage. And I just tried to get this done now in a polished version till now. And maybe also as a background, I'm a usual UX designer, no coder, and just do some prototyping with JavaScript, jQuery, and all this stuff. So pretty basic. Still keen to learn Node.js as you started or did already. Maybe also React at some point in the future. But yeah, by now just the basic JavaScript, CSS, HTML5 stuff. Okay, so I hope this will be not too dry in terms of topic. So what I maybe first should talk about is what I want to present to you. So first of all, where the idea came from, how I started, and next will be the base structure of this synthesizer or sampler I built, and then also talk short about the design improvements, some further ideas, and I think then that's it. Okay, the base idea was generated basically when I was sick at home for like 2 or 3 days, lying in the bed. And what you do when you lie in bed, you search the web, and at some point there was this magic buzzword blockchain somewhere back in 2017, November 2017. Yeah. So roughly a year ago. And I started searching and reading, and at some point also started watching YouTube, and yeah, you stumbled upon the one of the parts of a blockchain, or like the applications which run on blockchain, is like these cryptocurrencies, because blockchain is not equal to cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are just one part of a blockchain, or one application on a blockchain. Hopefully that's correct in terms of technology and how to describe it. But I soon found out there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of shit with this stuff, so maybe somebody knows this meme. And yeah, I thought, okay, first of all it was a bit more serious, and thought about, hey, maybe just hop around a bit with some coins and see what I can achieve. But I soon left that and stumbled still upon those things, and that's candlestick charts. So they're usually showing the volume which is traded, the price, lower and higher prices, and the losses and gains. And yeah, that reminded me at some point about not this, but some would call it equalizer, but more like this. And the idea was basically born sick in bed. That's it. And also like the waveform. So I thought, how can I maybe transfer this usage or this trade data into something usable or audible? And yeah, investigated further into API basics. So just started fetching the Kraken.com API. I mean, there are several marketplaces out there, or numerous marketplaces. Everybody has its own API with WebSockets or just pure REST API stuff. And they usually deliver something like that. So you get usually a list of assets they are trading on their platform, and those assets are, for example, like here XBT is the shorthand for Bitcoin, and USD is the real currency, or the counter currency they are trading it with. So you pay like in US dollar for Bitcoin, for example, and yeah, that's one part, and the other part are those trade histories. So for every cryptocurrency you get sort of a history. You can just segment it via 30 minutes, for example, an hour, weekly, daily basis, and so on. And what you get is these OHLC values, which is usually nearly the same on all platforms, which is like the open value on the day when it's traded, so the start value, then the highest trade value, the lowest one, and the closing value. And usually you have also, like described in their API for Kraken, for example, the volume weighted average, which is the average value the currency was traded on this day. And what I used to have is what I wanted to use is just the average, so like for a daily basis the average value or twice a day, and take this as a baseline to map this onto the audio buffer, into an audio buffer which is -1 to 1. So what this is doing basically is just getting an asset pair. So first of all, the list of asset pairs which are traded on the platform. I also wrote a small API, sort of API, to buffer the data because you have certain request limits onto the or towards those APIs. And then as soon as you select the trade pair, you would just grab the arrays with all the data, which is usually like 720 values of floating point data or floating point numbers. Is it called floating point numbers? Floats, let's call it floats. And then I just have gone through, or I looked through the array and then found the lowest and highest value, and then just mapped this according to the lowest highest value to a -1 and 1. And then you get this audio buffer, and that's basically what's happening here. And then all this stuff is put into the sample buffer, and the sample buffer is then played via WebMIDI, so also WebMIDI implementation, on a scale, so basically chromatic scale. And I will show this in a minute. And then there's some other stuff like filter, UI coding, or everything done with basic jQuery and some third-party knob libraries, and that's it. So let's get to the visual point. That's how it looks now. So it's also responsive, so you can also try it later on your mobile phone. I'll show you the domain in a second. And I would of course be keen to get some feedback of you guys. And yeah, what you can do here, you can select the MIDI input, so it's not yet converted to the WebMIDI fully functional in Safari and Internet Explorer whatsoever, so no WebMIDI shim yet, but that's one of the goals. So you can select WebMIDI, you can select your asset pair, and then you can just do some stuff like volume, filter, low-cut filter, and the resolution of the filter. And maybe I just show it for a second. Yeah, so that's the domain. If you want to use it, just visit bitcoinsynth.net. .com was already Alright, maybe let's first get this keyboard here, somebody input, and then you have here a list. It's not yet very visual, so, and also very cryptic, so you need to know by now the crypto assets shorthands, but that's not a problem at all, because they sound all very similar. So there are nuances to it, but I think it will be more a thing of putting on very good headphones or using very good monitors to get the difference. But nonetheless, we can maybe just start with something like Dash. That's one of the more popular coins in US dollar, for example. So it's now fetching the data and converting it already on the server side. So I built basically just a MySQL and PHP sort of buffer API. It's not even an API, I guess. So it's really just a PHP script which is just taking the data from the server. And if it's not yet there or it's too old, then it's just fetching the data from the Kraken API again, converting it back to -1 to 1 ranges, and then giving it back to the user. Yeah, and you can play it back. You can also change the scale, the octave, sorry, it's the scale. Let's see. So I didn't map the MIDI stuff yet, but maybe we can just. So you see, yeah, you see, it's working. Maybe just play around with it, give me some feedback, would be really nice. So feature-wise, it has web MIDI support, some very sweeping low-pass filters, so maybe also I have to do some rework on this, because I was experiencing really sharp dropouts for this filter. I don't know why, but it was hard to find the maximum resolution of the filter to not cut out or just completely overblow the sound output. But it's very lightweight, so it's really just no framework at all involved, besides maybe using the jQuery library. And other than that, just vanilla JavaScript and 60 plus cryptocurrencies by now. But there are also some problems, so it's not just features and everything's nice. It's also a problem that I run into was very short sample buffers, so it's roughly 720 samples, and you can cryptocurrencies in a different way. And of course, as I stated already, they sound all very similar. So when you, for example, just change the asset, that's the one and that's the other. Well, it's a difference, yes, but I think a novice sound designer wouldn't really see a difference or a huge difference. They look different, but they don't sound very different. It's really just the difference more like in the bass tonality and some little overtones, I guess, yeah. And of course I had this problem with the request limits, therefore I had to write some PHP script and had to use a MySQL database to buffer the data. And of course I have a ton of improvements I want to do, so it's just a side project for me. Yeah, I want to add some more effects. Maybe I talk to you regarding Tone.js, because that's one thing I just started reading about and heard a lot about on the WebAudio conference back in October. And what I want to do as well is to just get rid of this ugly drop-down thing and just work with the more visual, icon-based grid system. So that's more like on the design side. Yeah, also implementing this web MIDI shim, I think with Dave Wilson, if I'm not wrong, because then every browser can take MIDI inputs and also output to output and all the stuff. And also implement maybe MIDI learn function later on, so that would be nice to just click on a control and then assign a MIDI value to it. And also this blending of start and end points in the samples is maybe something mandatory or more mandatory to work on first. And also like loading indicators, so like usability improvements I can do in the short term. Because sometimes if you, for example, grab a new cryptocurrency pair, it takes a while, and takes a while. So it would be nice to have some sort of loading indicator, or at least some error message if it's failing at some point. Because it could also fail, so you see, nothing's happening. So there are some bugs still present. Yeah, and also a better on-screen keyboard. So when you're on mobile phone, take care that you just put this in. Don't be scared if it's sort of hanging at some point when you have like multiple touch inputs at once. So just try it out. Okay. The talk was also a bit about this basic JavaScript approach, because it's, if you have a look at it, or take a look at my base code, it's like you would just, as a usual web developer, just face palm. So, but the good thing is you don't have to use any frameworks. There's no deployment pipeline at all involved, or sort of dealing with certain Node.js dependencies, something which is completely out of scope here. And yeah, it's good for starters, of course. So web audio is quite simple to use, and also maybe give a short thank you to Chris Guder, because he helped me a lot to get this playing a sample on multiple MIDI notes at once working. That was quite hard, for example, for me. Yeah, and of course the good thing is also, if you want to deploy this to your own web space, so I will open source this sometime soon, you can just use a PHP MySQL server, so basically run it local without any hassle, or just use a basic web space. That's it. And some other ideas which is maybe not working at all, but which would be nice to discuss with you guys, or maybe have a chat in the Slack channel later on, is also regarding subsample level effects. So the idea is I just have this small sample length, but I could also aggregate other data stuff and maybe put it on a granular level at some point. Maybe that's possible, I'm not sure. But that was one of the ideas for a different kind of effects. And the other thing would be, of course, to base the effect parameters more like on other cryptocurrency values, like volatility, for example. So if the cryptocurrency is very volatile in its trading activities, or just see how the order book could maybe affect reverb or something like that. And also, of course, nice audio visualizations would be also very nice. And something for you, that's the website, so you can just try it out. Maybe give me some feedback, would be nice. And also the API you can access. So this is already on GitHub. You can, first of all, get the asset pairs which are present or which are converted. And the second one is here the audio buffer for the asset pair, or per asset pair. So this should give you back just an array of roughly 720 values of between -1 and 1. And then you can just use it, put it into a sample buffer, and maybe play with it. Let's see what you're coming up with. And yeah, just put it, well, just give me some comments, maybe also some hints on how to improve this, or if something's not working. Thanks.